Right. Hello everyone, and thank you all for coming to support this play what I wrote. It's been a bit chaotic, as you can imagine, with a small space and lots of things can go wrong, so it is quite humorous. Some of it I wrote, but I don't understand myself, so please look at your programmes and then it will become probably more clear that what it's all about. It's been difficult fitting Effingham's life into an hour, so obviously there's a lot of comings and goings, coming back 5 years later, and you'll get it as we go along anyway. So I hope you enjoy it. And excuse my croaky voice. And David's a stand-in, so he's a bit rusty. Right, here we go. Lord Effingham was lord of the manor and in need of a rural retreat, a place with a view and small woodland where a small shooting party could meet. This nobleman who had moved north to marry was a soldier with a regiment to head, but also had political leanings and ambitions in government, 'twas said. One morn when the Earl woke from slumbers at Holmes Hall as the summer sun shone, he fancied to partake of some fishing with his countess on the nearby Old Don. The day proved agreeably pleasant, but the catch was exceedingly poor, and the Earl became somewhat distracted by some rough land high up on South Moor. With a feeling of anticipation, his lordship rode up to the site and declared it the perfect position for his shooting lodge, to his delight. The Earl was amazed by the vista. The hillside commanded such views, marked somewhat of late by the furnaces from which he derived revenues. The times were politically challenging, rebellion in the colonies was rife, but our Earl had true moral values and supported the America's strife. The Earl found endorsement in Yorkshire and laid down his military sword, returning to matters political with a powerful speech in the Lords. With his military career all but over and his politicking for the moment complete, the Earl travelled northwards to Rotherham to make use of his rural retreat. His countess arranged shooting parties, her horse riding skills were renowned, and were written about in correspondence by a certain clergyman of the town. The Earl, being somewhat eccentric, used the parties to gain more support, but forbade tea being served at these gatherings, endorsing the consumption of port. Boston Castle was the name the Earl favoured for his retreat high on the hillside. It symbolised justice and freedom, principles in which he took pride. Quite soon the Earl's health was declining, and to Jamaica the couple set sail. As governor he was loved and respected, and peace on the island prevailed. The tropical climate proved faithful to our hero and his much beloved wife. After only 2 years on the island, the couple departed this life.
tells the story of Thomas Howard, 3rd Earl of Effingham. The first scene is set on the island of Jamaica, where in 1789 the Earl was appointed governor. His health is rapidly declining and he longs for his wife, who recently had embarked on a sea voyage for the benefit of her health, but unfortunately died at sea. Sinking into a reverie, he imagines his wife is still alive, and they reflect on their short time on the island.
My final days on this earth, I fear. Come on. Ooh. My final days on this earth, I fear, will be spent here on the island of Jamaica, where for the first 2 years I have been residing as governor. Well, in hindsight, I believe it was folly to accept the governorship of this island, but here I now remain without the love of my life, my beloved Countess. How I miss her. Oh, sometimes I feel her presence close by. My kind Countess and I were not in the best of health prior to leaving the island. Little thought, the hot weather on this tropical island would prove beneficial.
A shrouded figure I am. Alas, it was not to be.
But my dear wife, it was clear to me your health was becoming more precarious. So I took it upon myself to arrange a sea voyage to New York for you, in the hope you would return recovered. Sadly, this was not the case, and you died on board HMS Diana before reaching New York Harbour again. Oh. I now, of course, regret my disastrous decision regarding your health, and 2 days ago, your body was returned to this island, and I am inconsolable. To compound my grief, it appears that you, without my knowledge, had requested that post-mortem be performed on your body, which had been ravaged by fever. It seems, however, from the results of the said post-mortem, that copious amounts of port that you had consumed over the passage of time may have contributed to your demise.
My lord, I must protest in the strongest possible terms. I also requested that the results of the said post-mortem be used only for medical research, not for after-dinner conversation regarding the state of my liver. You must have a word with the pathologist, and if he visits in the future, do make sure to keep the drinks cabinet closed, should he suffer the same fate.
Your protestations are of no consequence now, and I keep asking myself, why did I accept the invitation to come to these foreign parts? Okay, I lost my page now.
It's not this one on the floor, is it?
I was invited to govern this island by my beloved monarch, King George III. The rumours of his recent madness were obviously quite absurd. When we first arrived on the island, after a very rough crossing at sea, we were greeted by much celebrating and a cup of East India tea. The island's finances needed sorting, the celebrations we had to abort, so the tea was returned to the pantry, and we cracked open a bottle of port. We soon settled into a new lifestyle and were beloved by all that we were told. The climate, however, was challenging, and some days we would prefer to be cold.
Well,
that might be a little extreme. I'm curious as to how I will be remembered at all by future generations, and which of my notable careers will be most favourably commented on. I was described as a rough soldier with no sign of sense by Horace Walpole, a mere politician antiquarian, so what would he know? Whereas an experienced admiral once described me as having good judgment of sea manoeuvres. No wonder I'm confused.
my lord, you are mostly of sound judgment, nevertheless someone a little uncouth, but your legacy will long be remembered along with your principles of justice and truth.
Oh, do you really think so, my love? Well, your parents thought me not good enough for their lovely young daughter. Do you recall our first meeting in our beloved Yorkshire? I instantly fell for your charm and your beauty. I know you were instantly besotted, and our life journey started a mere few months later.
Scene 2, start of the story. Following the death of his father in 1763, Thomas Howard assumed the title of 3rd Earl of Effingham. He began to contemplate how life in the West Riding of Yorkshire would suit him.
In 1763, and I've left my wig on the table, so I'll put that on first. Ready. It is 1763, and I am mourning the loss of my dear gallant father, brave soldier, Major General 34th Regiment of Foot. Alas, I fear my own military career will not be so illustrious. Well, I obtained a commission as ensign in the Coldstream Guards. Regrettably, however, they promptly finished the 7 Years' War with France, and therefore I was unable to prove myself in battle. I do not fear fighting and dying for our beloved king and country. However, there are so many delights and pleasures in this life I would like to enjoy before that day comes. I now find myself with good fortune on my side, having inherited a title, Earl of Effingham, no less. Thank you. And with that title comes land and property in the fair country of Yorkshire. I'm reliably informed that Yorkshire ladies possess great beauty, and I intend to investigate that for myself. I have no doubt that with my good looks, a title, and possession of wealth, possession of wealth, I will have the fairer sex begging for an introduction. And here is my first dinner invitation. A family, the name of Proctor, who reside at Thorpe Hall, near to Leeds, have extended an invitation to dine. They are not aristocracy, but well regarded in the society, and I believe there are 3 Proctor daughters, and from what I've heard, I am particularly attracted to the youngest daughter by the name of Kate. From what I hear, she possesses all the attributes I am looking for in a wife and life companion. I must reply at once and make your preparations. Aha! I feel romance in the air.
It's 1766 and the Effinghams are married, settled into life at Holmes Hall and enjoying the social scene in the West Riding of Yorkshire. It was not long, however, before the Earl became restless, longing for adventure.
Ah, there you are, my love. Do you realise it's almost a year since our first meeting, and I've just been reflecting on what a wonderful year it has been. When I find myself in the West Riding of Yorkshire, in search of a buxom young bride, a fun-loving, adventurous young filly, methinks, to wed and be there by my side.
Oh, is that how you regarded me? You make our union sound like an equestrian event. No wonder my father was against any marriage. He didn't approve of you and thought you common, despite your title. And your manners. Enough said about that subject.
Well, you seemed pretty keen at the time. One less mouth to feed.
I know I was no great beauty, but certainly not delicate and flowery. And we shared the same sense of humour, and I came with a decent-sized dowry.
Oh, my dear, you were magnificent, and your dear sisters paled into insignificance. You possessed the quality of looking for a wife and a good horsewoman to boot. That's a very special attribute for the sort of life I had planned for us, and which we now enjoy. I proposed, you accepted, your father objected, so we eloped to Scotland.
We were so much in love, carefree and oblivious to protocol. However, we were quickly reminded of its importance upon our return to Rotherham, where a formal wedding ceremony was arranged for us at Rotherham Parish Church. We soon settled into our new life at Holmes Hall, albeit very modest residence, and hardly the kind of abode I had imagined for an earl and his young bride. However, I loved our little love nest, domestic life and the local scene, which proved very enjoyable.
Well, it's true, but only for a short time. And my inheritance and your dowry did not provide sufficient income even for our modest lifestyle. Well, I derived some income from the Walker family, who chose to set up their iron foundry close by on my land, but the smoke they produced was making our idyll less than ideal. But I needed a plan. Oh, and enough of these reminiscences. We must consider what the future may hold, and I have an idea. I now need to resume my military career. There's a war taking place overseas. I propose writing to King George III, or rather to get down on my knees, for permission to act as a mercenary in the service of Catherine the Great, and to fight with the brave man of Russia. A plan that I fear my Countess will hate.
I certainly do not relish the thought of my lord putting his life at risk just to impress our king. However, should you be serious in your considerations, I will of course accompany you. I actually feel rather excited about the prospect of travelling to St. Petersburg together and residing as a guest at the royal court, which, my lord, you will have to arrange promptly.
Excellent idea, my dear. I made the decision, with your blessing, of course, that our journey to Russia will be overland instead of a sea crossing.
Well, that sounds rather exciting, but do you not think some of the terrain over the mountains may be trifling challenging, to say the least?
Oh, take heart. If that be the case, we shall travel part of the way by donkey. Ha! En route, we can stay a while at the court of the Duke of Mecklenburg in Germany. He's the brother-in-law of our most gracious king.
Here's hoping we make it that far unscathed and our clothes will not be too crumpled on arrival. I assure a sea journey would not prove more comfortable.
Nonsense, my love! However, there is much to contemplate. Firstly, I must write to the king and ask his permission.
In 1768, the couple travelled to Russia, where Effingham, having gained permission from the king, served as a mercenary in the service of the Tsarina during the Russo-Turkish War under the command of Admiral John Elphinstone.
We've been in St. Petersburg for a few months, and my lord has been introduced to Admiral Elphinstone, who has recently concluded his naval preparations and will shortly embark on the first archipelago expedition. As my lord is a land officer by profession, he will not be permitted to command any of the fire ships. However, he is very hopeful of seeing action. Furthermore, he is to be head of all the Greek volunteers. Last evening we said our farewells, and this morning my lord set sail on board a Russian man of war bound for Hull. He is carrying dispatches of a very important nature. His onward journey will take him to London, where he will meet their Majesties at St. James. The purpose of the meeting is to formally ask leave of our gracious King to serve as a volunteer in the Russian fleet. I have summed up all my lord's departure with all the courage I am able to bear, and sincerely wish him success in his first forthcoming adventures. At present, that is all I can think of. I propose staying a couple of months longer in St. Petersburg and then going to Moscow to indulge my eyes in their industries, which I am very much looking forward to. I must write to Lady Hussey Delaval and tell her of my plans, and also of the gracious reception I received from the Empress. She is the most extraordinary princess I ever saw, gracious to a degree and elegant in her person, with the most superior understanding. I have no doubt my lord will tell Lady Delaval all the news from here when they meet in London, before he sets sail on his most dangerous adventures. I have received an invitation to a ball at court this evening, which I am so looking forward to, and for now I must prepare for my forthcoming visit to Moscow.
It's 1771 and the couple are reunited in England. Effingham is exhilarated following his recent adventures. On his return, he learns that he's received an inheritance following the remarriage of his mother. The couple discuss their future aspirations in their new home and also the possibility of a new shooting lodge. It wasn't long, however, before the Earl had some serious decisions to make about his future as a soldier.
Well, my love, home again following my adventures at sea with Elphinstone. I witnessed a great victory by the Russians over the Ottoman Empire. We defeated and destroyed the Ottoman fleet at the harbour of Chesney. And the whole of the Ottoman fleet was burned. No good.
As your adventures are at an end now, my lord, I do hope so. However, we have so many stories of our overseas adventures which our friends are anxious to hear of. We will no doubt be receiving invitations to dine out for weeks.
Elphinstone requested I kept a journal while at sea, which said journal I shortly intend to have published. Well, anonymously, of course. Furthermore, that means that I can dedicate the journal to myself.
My lord, do you not think that a trifle indulgent?
Nonsense, my lord. Me love. Slightly mysterious, maybe, but it will provide an excellent publication for future historians to deliberate on. But particularly the Russians, who so admired Elphinstone, and rightly so. I will call the publication An Authentic Narrative of the Russian Expedition Against the Turks by Sea and Land. An excellent plan. Although it's good to be set about Holmes Hall, I am certainly not happy with the further industrialisation which now surrounds our home.
Indeed, some of the days, even the sun is obscured by the smoke produced by the furnaces belonging to the Walkers. Furthermore, I have heard it is rumoured they are becoming wealthier than their landlord.
Well, that doesn't surprise me. My salary as a captain of the 22nd Regiment of Foot falls far short of providing us with an adequate income. Fortunately, my dear mamma has recently remarried and I've been bequeathed a small inheritance. Should the state inheritance prove sufficient, I may commission John Platt, the local architect, to design a new modest mansion for us in the healthier part of my manor of Kimberworth.
That would be wonderful. We will be able to entertain in a manner more suited to our status. I could play my guitar, whilst you could discuss your mineral specimens. Or better still, entertain them with your magic lantern.
I must write and congratulate my dear mother on her nuptials. She's been widowed for some years now and deserves a little happiness. She said very little about her financial situation when my dear papa died.
I'm so looking forward to a new lifestyle. We can go hunting and fishing. Do you think you might also consider commissioning a shooting lodge, my lord?
Oh, certainly. I'll give it some thought. How do you fancy a day's fishing on the Don tomorrow, love? Pack a lunch and make a day of it.
How disappointing the fishing expedition proved. However, we did spot that wonderful rough land high up on Southmore.
Perfect location for our new shooting lodge. Views are amazing, but somewhat marred by clouds of smoke. Nevertheless, the walkers do provide us with much needed revenue. So, my love, you seem to share my enthusiasm. I will immediately commission John Platt to design our rural retreat. It will be in the Gothic style, with pinnacles. Not on the grand scale with the follies on the Rockingham estate. But everything my budget will allow for.
It sounds very exciting. We can shoot, hunt and jump gates. 5 barred ones no less. No more trips to the races for a while, however. That wretched nag on which you placed a bet using Eastwood Farm as a stake lost as a useful asset with which we could have funded our new venture.
Well, quite so. Just imagine, with your horse riding skills, you will be the talk of the nearby aristocracy. Well, most of the men anyway, as not many ladies possess your daring. Life is good, and I hope it stays so. But, I hate to spoil our domestic plans and pleasures, but there is much talk among the ranks about the colonies, and concern that the rumblings might turn into a full-scale war of independence.
Do you really think so, my lord? I hate the thought of you once again putting your life in danger.
I know your feelings, but I must remind you that my profession is that of a soldier. And whilst I would gladly die for king and country, on this occasion I cannot reconcile my conscience to drawing my sword upon my fellow countrymen.
That is a very controversial statement, and will surely be one of the acts you will be remembered for in future years. I will, of course, respect your decision. However, should events take a turn for the worst, I am concerned that our beloved king will not look upon your resignation too kindly.
Nevertheless, should the day dawn when I feel it necessary to resign my commission as captain of the 22nd of Foot, I will use my place in the House of Lords to deliver a speech setting out the reasons for my decision.
How noble you are, my lord, and I shall support you wholeheartedly. I am sure you will be remembered in the colonies for your action, and maybe in future years your decision will lead to a position which reflects the feelings you have displayed towards your fellow countrymen. Maybe America awaits us.
Quite so. In the meantime, we shall concentrate on our move to Thundercliff and prepare for celebrations when our new shooting lodge is finally complete. Well, here we are. It's 1774, and things are hotting up on the other side of the Atlantic. News has just reached London that a group of Bostonians, known as the Sons of Liberty, have destroyed an entire shipment of tea by throwing the tea chests into Boston Harbour. This means trouble and could help accelerate the colonists' cries for a war of independence. It really is serious. Should events take a further turn for the worse, and the order comes for my regiment to be dispatched to the colonies, I have to write a letter of resignation to Lord Barrington to lay before our beloved king.
I should remind you, my lord, that you also have numerous local matters which require your attention. Following your resignation, you will no doubt have more time to attend to your duties as Lord of the Manor. I noticed a correspondence on your desk inviting you to be guardian of the standard of wrought plate within Sheffield. Quite a prestigious appointment. And furthermore, the hallmark of E will be chosen in your honour. The proposed new charity school needs your attention at meetings as well.
Yes, I know. However, my first priority must be to reflect on my recent decision and its implications for my future prospects as a soldier, which are pretty dim, I fear. I've today paid a visit to our new shooting lodge, which looks splendid high on the hillside. The vista is amazing. I've been giving a great deal of thought about what we might call it. What do you think about naming it Boston Castle, in support of the Boston colonists and their act of defiance?
My lord, it's hardly a castle, unfortunately. You'll be telling me next that you're going to order the pinnacles to be removed and replaced by castellations.
Ah, already done. Furthermore, the drinking of tea will be forbidden, even by ladies. Well, do you start organising the festivities, including fireworks?
By the way, there is an interesting looking letter on your desk. Should you find time to read it in the midst of all your celebrations.
Good Lord. I received notice our gracious King has declined my request to resign as captain of the 22nd Regiment, who have embarked for war in the American colonies without me. This saddens me greatly.
Following his resignation, Effingham became very active in local affairs and also social scenes in Yorkshire and London. He turned his attentions to politics. However, when situations necessitated, as they often did, he returned to Yorkshire and Thundercliff.
Well, maybe now is the time for me to enter the world of politics and become an active member of the Whig Party. I've all but finished my work on the proposed speech to the House of Lords. How does my Countess feel about the suggestion?
As you wish, my lord, but there are social matters which need our attention. I have dispatched invitations to our first shooting party at Boston Castle and ordered gallons of port. For reasons of economy, my lord, we will be feasting on the rabbits you will be shooting. Reverend William Mason, who resides nearby at Aston, has already sent a reply stating he is looking forward to attending and views the prospect of seeing me jump 5 barred gates with much anticipation.
Well, no doubt he does, and also to consuming most of our port. I think for our first shooting party we will serve salmon and venison, because both are easily obtainable on my estate and equally economic. I must then turn my attention to matters of a more serious nature. But at the moment, there are festivities to enjoy. Well, my speech in the House against the war apparently made a powerful impression on those present. This might well be the start of a successful political career, and accordingly, we have decided to take up residence in London for a while. My lady is for the time being enjoying the social scene. I fear, however, she will soon become restless for our country lifestyle. My career is progressing. I've been appointed Lieutenant Colonel and Privy Councillor. Ha! Come on. So, plenty to keep me occupied.
Did you say something, my lord? Are we soon to return to Thundercliff? I long for the countryside. I am able to tolerate the London scene for only brief periods, and the conversation of the ladies is so tedious.
My dear, I know you don't always find the social scene in the capital agreeable, and you become restless and melancholy, to say the least. Should you, therefore, wish to return north for a while, I will make suitable arrangements, albeit with a heavy heart.
Thank you, my lord. It would be good to be mistress of our home again instead of the lodger of sort in the capital.
Well, my lady's left for Thundercliff, and life is dull without her, and even duller some of the official duties. I long once again for adventure. I have, however, received a request from the Marquis of Rockingham. Try that again. I have, however, received a request from the Marquis of Rockingham asking me to accompany him to the Humber. It appears that the pirate, John Paul Jones, is attempting a landing. I will advise Rockingham to send for Walker Cannon immediately to avoid this impending catastrophe. I'll leave at once. The wretched pirate was defeated. Ha! And he's landing off Humber aborted. I think Rockingham appreciated my support. Well, on my return, my correspondence with my beloved Countess was waiting. She's missing me, as I hear. Although I entertain no desire at present to return north, I have a plan, which I'm sure she'll enjoy. There are to be festivities to celebrate the acquittal of Admiral Keppel, who has been on trial for treason. We will join other members of the aristocracy and make haste to Portsmouth to engage in the celebrations. I will tell my lady to buy a new hat and suitable ribbons and adornments for the occasion. Ha! Splendid idea.
I am a member of the Tory party. I had just lunched with other members of the Tory party, and it seems, much to our amusement, that Effingham, yes, Effingham, is starting his ascent up the greasy pole of politics. Unfortunately, his appearance has become the laughingstock of the house. His clothes are dirty, and his deportment and etiquette, well, they're virtually non-existent. He has, however, caught the eye of Pitt, and is a near neighbour of Rockingham. He is best remembered for his resignation and speech on the subject in the Lords. Some think him a coward, others a hero, and I dare say he will be applauded in the Americas in the future, so maybe our jeers should be somewhat subdued. He appears to be becoming a lesser known star in the political firmament of our time. An interesting character.
Following our expedition to Portsmouth, I've decided to return to Thundercliff to be with my lady. I will also make use of the time to survey my land and properties, some of which I'm afraid I may need to dispose of, as I am in need of additional income yet again. Bit of a rag. Well, I never. There's an article in the paper concerning my demise. It seems that I was killed in the Gordon riots, and my body thrown into the Thames. Ha ha! How amusing! I must contact the editor and relate to my time after death in paradise. For the moment, however, my sole idea of paradise is here at Thundercliff, with my lady. There you are, my love. For now, I propose keeping a low profile, my dear, and concentrate on what future appointments may lay ahead. I've been approached by Pitt to write an essay on the nature of a loan, that subject in which I am very familiar, having just penned a letter to my own bank manager on that subject. I must take a note of the measures I'm about to promote.
Oh, being debt, my lord, I will immediately take measures to be more prudent on the domestic front. Maybe we could eat more rabbit.
Oh, indeed. Oh, Mama seems to be prospering following her remarriage. I shall spruce myself up and pay her a courtesy visit. Worry not, my love. I shall be returning to London shortly to recommence my duties. I've recently returned to London and have been introduced to a delightful widow, a certain Mrs. Cox. We are to dine at a secret location. And I'm not sure of her financial position, but it might be worth visiting my tailor to commission a new jacket and breeches. And then having my wig powdered together with new attire would render me unrecognisable to prying eyes. I wonder which of my many talents would interest her most. Maybe my recent essay on the nature of a loan, or my adventures in Russia. Oh, my bankers have agreed to extend my loan, and I feel an exciting evening ahead. Oh yeah, well, my secret romantic rendezvous proved disastrous. I'm mortified and ashamed of my infidelity. The newspapers got word of it and have published an article together with illustrations of the said lady and myself, which I have to report were very unflattering. I have to make myself scarce until the scandal becomes yesterday's news. I think it was the excitement of an affair which prompted me to behave in such an uncharacteristic way. I miss adventure and my career as a soldier, and the cerebral way of life sometimes ill suits me. News of the siege of Gibraltar appears daily in the press. The French and the Spanish are trying to take the colony of Gibraltar, and food and provisions are fast running out. I'm going to offer my service as a one-time mariner to sail on one of these boats which are providing relief to the brave soldiers on the island. Well, this could prove a dangerous exercise, but it would demonstrate once and for all that I am no coward and would risk my life in the service of the king, should he consider the cause worthy. I will inform my lady my intentions, and she's not going to be well pleased. I hope that no word of my infidelity has reached her ears, but I fear the worst. Well, back again in the West Riding. What a difference a year makes. The relief of Gibraltar proved successful. The siege is now at an end. The promontory remains a colony of our glorious country and beloved monarch, unlike, I dare say, the Americans. It seems that my small involvement, together with that of my fellow veterans, was widely reported. On the domestic front, my lady has chosen not to mention my brief romantic encounter. In fact, together with my latest adventure, I elevated that of a hero and one-time philanderer. The next few years, however, are going to prove my worth as a serious politician and a member of the Whig Party. Spencer Stanhope, who resides at nearby Cannon Hall, and has asked that I accompany him to Hull. William Wilberforce is standing for the position of MP for Yorkshire, and Stanhope feels we should support him. Close friend of Pitt, they attended Cambridge together. I believe in the future, should he win, he'll make for himself a name as a social reformer. I have a splendid idea to make our journey en route more entertaining. We could continue our work on more humorous satirical rhymes about members of the opposition, particularly our near neighbour, the Duke of Devonshire. Quite Devonshire Duke, it will make a man puke to hear your Whig principles talked on. Go home to your Dutchers, get removed from soil sexes clutches, the worst crime that you've ever been. Ha! Methinks Devonshire should pay more attention to his Duchess's gambling debts and philanderings round town. Well, as I suspected, I have now little time for any extra activities. I'm solely occupied with affairs of state. The Tories continue to be less than generous in their comments, and indeed yet again continue to shower me with insults. I've just published a collection of letters on parliamentary reform, And our illustrious Prime Minister has appointed me Master of the Mint, no less. Should we try that again? Master of the Mint, no less.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you. Matters in the Americas are at end, and our beloved King has reluctantly recognised the independence of the United States. Rumour has it that I am to be considered for the position as first ambassador to the United States. But I fear my work as Master of the Mint may take precedence for the time being.
I hope the rumours prove false. I have no desire to live in a country where our beloved monarch does not rule.
Indeed.
By 1785, Effingham's political career was nearing an end. His resignation was noted in America, and it was thought opportunities across the Atlantic might come his way.
My lord, it has just been announced in the press that a certain John Adams has been appointed as first American ambassador to the United Kingdom. I don't suppose his arrival will be met with much rejoicing. Do you suppose we might be invited to welcome Mr. and Mrs. Adams on their arrival in view of your support for the colonies?
Well, it's certainly possible, my dear. I think I should order a new jacket and a pair of breeches, as the ones I wear are practically threadbare.
Is that so? Funnily enough, I came upon a receipt from your tailor in London, who not too long ago made you a new three-piece suit, of velvet no less. Would that not be suitable?
I fear it would be too flamboyant for such an occasion. More formal attire would be more suitable.
My lord has been philandering around the London scene. Regrettably, it was reported in Town and Country magazine. He thinks I have no knowledge of his secret love affair, so a dutiful wife I will remain. It's not as if I care, and I do really. I have penned a note to Mrs. Cox regarding all his debt, so any future aspirations she will no doubt forget.
Well, my dear, the Tory venom has begun to spit itself forth. It seems they're up in arms that the Adams received the same politeness and civility afforded to ministers of other countries when presented to their majesties. Apparently, our gracious magistrates were courteous during their private audience. However, the meeting was marked by the pomp and ceremony required by the occasion of a royal audience. It was reported that there was a strong current of emotion as the king and his former subject met face to face.
Mrs. Adams was very friendly when she invited me to take tea with her. We spoke at length about your resignation and how well you are remembered by America. We intend keeping in touch, as since their arrival into society, they have indeed been ostracised by some sections of the social scene, particularly the Tories.
Quite so. My dear, there are rumours that I may be offered the position of First Ambassador to America. Would the appointment meet your favour?
Certainly not. Although Mrs. Adams was courteous, she considers me a trifle masculine in appearance, I am told. I would not care to spend my days as a shrinking violet, talking only of mantua makers and ribbons, as the fair ladies in America are so inclined.
Quite so, my dear. I fear such a position, if offered, might prove too arduous at our time of life. We should be looking forward to a more relaxed lifestyle in a warmer climate, which would benefit my gout and chilblains. Well, I haven't mentioned this before, but I had an audience with Pitt yesterday, and he also offered me the position of Governor of Jamaica.
That sounds a wonderful opportunity, my lord, if you choose to accept. Although I shall feel such sadness at leaving our home, are you certain you will not entertain the position of American ambassador?
Yes.
Do you think it is possible that in 250 years' time, people will still celebrate our close American connection?
Who knows? Well,
That's for you, the audience, to decide.
Our story is nearing an end, and Effingham is now near to death and reflects on his lady's short time on Jamaica and his governorship of the island.
My lady gladly agreed to the appointment. We set sail on His Majesty's sloop of war, the Catherine. The crossing was rough, and my lady lost many garments and all her shoes as they were put in the hold by mistake. She was in great distress by the loss. She corresponded frequently with our friends, Sir Isaac and Lady Hurd, who kindly helped with the replacement of her lost accessories. Although, I have to say, she became increasingly impatient with the length of time it took. Although the mosquitoes made a meal of us both and the heat debilitated my lady, she still enjoyed the pleasures of riding and compared the terrain with that of Yorkshire. As it turned out, we landed at a time considered to be one of the most tumultuous and dangerous in the island's history. My lady wrote of her concerns about the threat of war. Fortunately, the island of Jamaica did not suffer the same fate as our neighbour of St. Dominique, and peace prevailed. I would like to think my words of restraint were partly responsible, but future generations will judge whether that was the case. I think I might have a nap now. I fear there may be many more tomorrows.
And now Brian Edwards, a leading member of the Colonial Assembly of Jamaica.
I have just returned from the Assembly, having learned of the death of our noble governor. This nobleman was educated in the army, and with frankness and firmness of a soldier, possessed very extraordinary talents for civil employment. He displayed a calmness of temper and a clearness of conception which the captious and subtle perplexities of forensic argument could not disturb or elude. His mind was strong and quick, penetrating, sound and decisive. But the prominent feature of his character, which displayed itself in all cases and on every occasion, was a manly and unshaken intrepidity. He neither courted nor dreaded any man living, proceeding straight forward in the plain path of his duty without fear, favour or affection. At his first entrance into the government, his manners were thought ungracious, but his talents and virtues were soon happily experienced, and he then became the most popular of all governors. The Assembly has unanimously voted a magnificent funeral for the remains of his lordship, as they had for those of the Countess of Effingham. They likewise ordered a monument to be erected to perpetuate the memory of their virtues. May his story long be remembered and written of.
Castle, so, you know, we've enjoyed doing it. You know, there's been one or two errors, but what can you do? I think Broadway awaits them. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Hi, Janet. Come on, Janet. Thank you everyone for coming in today. It's all been very hot, I know, but you've been very patient with us and a fantastic audience. Thank you very much.